Today we're going to talk about the northern lights, the Aurora Borealis, and all the things that I've learned through capturing it on multiple occasions that you can use to make your aurora photography the best that it can possibly be. So if you're ready to capture some photographs that are going to become lifelong memories, then let's dive in. When it comes to the gear, it's actually pretty straightforward. So we'll just need a tripod, a wide angle lens, and a camera. First of all, put your camera into manual mode, and this will give you the most control over your settings. Next, we want to turn on our shutter delay timer. If you shoot on a Sony camera, then you can select this from the shooting modes, and I'll explain to you in a second why it's so important to do this. Also, make sure that your camera is set up to take photos in a RAW format rather than just a JPEG format, as that'll give you a lot more flexibility when you bring it into the edit later on. For aperture or f-stop, you want to be somewhere between 1.4 and 3.2. Now that's the best range that I've found for capturing the lights. If you're a beginner photographer, this might seem a little bit counterintuitive and you might be thinking, maybe I should be shooting at like f14 or somewhere up to f20 to capture everything in focus. But that isn't what you want to be doing here. The goal is to get as much light into the sensor as possible. For ISO, you normally want to be between 2500 and 4000. So I'll normally start at 3200 ISO and then work up or down from there. Now, if you've got a camera that can handle low light exceptionally well, you might get away with pushing that ISO a little bit higher without your images becoming too noisy. But generally, I'd say somewhere in the 2500 to 4000 ISO range is pretty good. We're going to be shooting the northern lights at pretty slow shutter speeds, and so even though we're on a tripod, any sort of micro movements or jitters can cause our image to become blurred, which we don't want. Now, a time that this can particularly happen is when we're actually pressing the shutter button to snap a photo. So in order to avoid any sort of movement or micro jitters, we can use that shutter delay timer, and that will allow it to count down before it physically snaps the photo. Now, if you don't have that functionality in your camera, then just use a shutter release button and that will do exactly the same job. Shutter speed is going to be extremely important for the style of the photo. So if you shoot on a slower shutter speed, then as those lights move, it's going to be captured as like a smudge of color in the night sky. If you want to get sharper edges and have it looking a little bit more defined, then you're going to need to speed up that shutter. From here, it's just down to personal preference. So myself, I prefer the jagged, rigid lines on the northern lights. I just think they look a little bit cooler, but it's totally up to you what you decide to do. From here, you want to put your camera into manual focus mode, and this isn't as scary as you think it should be. So this is it's a much better and much more efficient way of focusing on the lights properly. So use this rather than any kind of auto setting, because you're going to get much better results from this. So once you've locked it in on manual focus, point your camera at a star in the night sky and then rotate that focus ring until the star becomes as small as possible. If you're shooting on a Sony like me, then as soon as you adjust that focus ring, it's going to magnify and bring the star closer so you can focus on that a little bit better. If you're working with a different camera brand, then you may have like a magnification button or one that you need to press in order to just zoom that in to make it a little bit easier for yourself to actually focus. Here are some examples of some of the photos that I captured of the northern lights and the settings that I used to capture them. Hopefully at this point you've got your settings locked in, but we're not done just yet. If you want to change how the photo looks slightly, then you can also change your white balance. And changing your white balance can have dramatic effects on the colors within the photo and how it looks in the image. At this stage, I'm sure that you've got all the skills that you need to capture some stunning aurora imagery. If there is anything I've left out or anything you're unsure of, then please ask me in the comment section below. And if you want to check out my last trip to Churchill, then click the video that's coming up next.